Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really bold thesis, one that says an AI tsunami is about to hit and disrupt pretty much everything. And at the center of it is one company that might be building the only Ark, an Ark that could turn into an absolute money-printing machine. You know, we have to start with this quote. When the person who is literally building these systems gives a warning this stark, it really sets the stage for the kind of massive society-level shifts we're about to get into. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the AI tsunami itself. Then, we'll get into the robo-taxi revolution, the core of the money-making argument. After that, we'll zoom out to see the bigger picture with Tesla's 3 pillars, touch on a wild idea of a personal UBI, and then, of course, hit the reality check with the major hurdles. All right, so let's start with this warning. The core idea here is that we're heading into an era where AI is going to replace old-school businesses and, yes, a lot of jobs, on a scale that we've just never seen before in human history. And this brings up a huge question, right? I mean, what actually happens when a machine can do a job better, faster, and cheaper than a person? We're talking about roles like truck driving, factory work, logistics. This isn't some far-off sci-fi concept. The argument is that this is coming, and it's coming fast. So the engine driving all this change is something called embodied AI. The key thing to understand is that this isn't just clever software on a computer. This is AI that exists in the physical world. It moves, it works, it manipulates things, and the thesis positions Tesla as the ultimate pure play on this idea. Okay, now we get to the absolute core of the thesis. This is where the numbers get wild, and it's all about that idea of a money-printing machine. We're talking about the economics of a massive robo-taxi network. So just look at the numbers on this slide for a second. The cost for a human driver is around $1.80 per mile, which means you, the customer, end up paying maybe $3. Now compare that to the cybercab. The operating cost plummets to just 30 cents a mile. That means they could charge you just $1, way cheaper for you, and still make around 70 cents of pure profit on every single mile. That difference? That's the engine of this whole thesis. And think about what that means in practice. One of these autonomous cars could run 18, maybe 20 hours a day. It doesn't need a lunch break, it doesn't get tired, it doesn't take weekends off. It could easily do the work of 3, 4, maybe even 5 human drivers. The efficiency is just off the charts. And this is where your jaw kind of hits the floor. You take that 70 cents of profit per mile and you scale it across a global fleet of millions of these cybercabs running almost nonstop. Well, the potential profit figures just become astronomical. We're talking about $200 billion a year from just the robo-taxi network alone. But here's the thing. It doesn't even stop with the cars. That's just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. The argument zooms out to a 3-pronged attack on some of the biggest industries on the planet. So the thesis is that Tesla's making a play on 3 fundamental pillars of our civilization, all at the same time: transportation, human labor, and energy. And the thing that ties it all together, the secret sauce, is that same underlying embodied AI technology. And you can see the exact same logic playing out with the Optimus robot. It's basically the robo-taxi playbook, but for physical labor. Imagine a robot that can work around the clock for just a few bucks an hour. It completely changes the economic equation for manufacturing, logistics, you name it. So if all this disruption is actually coming, what's the solution for the average person? Well, this is where the thesis gets really interesting, with a pretty wild idea about how you could personally hedge against all this change. The idea is pretty simple, really. At a certain point, these autonomous businesses, the robo-taxis, the robots, they're just gushing cash. So much cash that the company literally can't find enough ways to reinvest it all effectively. And that sets up this incredible potential feedback loop. The AI systems make huge profits. The company has to do something with that money, so it returns it to shareholders through dividends or buybacks. And suddenly, your shares aren't just an investment, they're generating a real passive income stream. You're basically getting paid by the very technology that's causing all the disruption. And this quote from the source just hits the nail on the head, right? It perfectly captures the whole concept. The very robot that displaces a worker could end up paying that same worker's bills, but only if they own a piece of it. Okay, but let's pump the brakes for a second. This all sounds incredible, but it is absolutely not a sure thing. The source is actually very clear about the major hurdles that stand in the way. This is the reality check. First up, the elephant in the room: key man risk. So much of this entire vision, this whole grand plan, rests on the shoulders of one person. That level of dependence on a single individual creates a massive amount of uncertainty. Then you've got all the red tape. I mean, you can build the world's best autonomous technology, but you can't just unleash a million cars with no steering wheels onto public roads. The laws have to change, governments have to approve it, and that process can be incredibly slow. Third, and this is a big one, is just plain old execution risk. Let's be honest, we've seen ambitious timelines from Tesla get pushed back before. Turning this incredible vision into a smoothly operating global reality is unbelievably hard, and it could take a lot longer than anyone thinks. And finally, Tesla is not playing this game alone, not by a long shot. You have some really serious, heavy-hitting competitors out there like Waymo in the self-driving space and innovative robotics companies like Figure. The race is definitely on. So where does that all leave us? You've got this mind-blowing potential on one side, this money-printing robot fleet, and these really serious company-threatening risks on the other. It all comes down to the final bet. The thesis ultimately lands on this idea of Tesla being what's called an N of one. The argument is that right now, no other single company is putting all the necessary pieces together in quite the same way. The real-world AI, the massive manufacturing scale, and the tight control over its own supply chain. Which brings us to the final provocative question the source leaves us with. If this AI tsunami is really coming, if this disruption is inevitable, does it make more sense to be an owner participating in that upside, or to be a bystander caught off guard by the downside?